Your Chihuahua did something today. Again, it followed you into the kitchen, waited outside the bathroom, curled beside your feet when you sat down, and maybe you barely noticed. Because to most owners, this feels normal. Just another Chihuahua being clingy, cute, needy, a little dramatic. Maybe you even smiled and said, "Why are you following me everywhere?" But what if that tiny shadow behind you is trying to tell you something important, something silent, something urgent, something you may have missed again? And if you watched our previous story about why Chihuahuas freeze and stare at you, then you already know something powerful. Chihuahuas rarely waste behavior. They do not do things randomly. When they stare, there is usually a reason. When they shake, there is usually a reason. And when they suddenly refuse to leave your side, there is almost always a message underneath. The problem is, their messages are quiet. Unlike humans, dogs rarely communicate distress the way we expect. They do not always bark. They do not always cry. They do not always make obvious sounds. Instead, they whisper through behavior, through stillness, through routine changes, through tiny physical habits most humans overlook. And few breeds are more subtle than a Chihuahua. Because when you are that small, survival works differently. Big reactions can attract danger. Small signals are safer. So instead of shouting, they show you. They cling, they tremble, they stare, they burrow into blankets. They press their tiny body against yours. And many owners misunderstand what all of this means. They assume, he's spoiled. She just wants attention. He's manipulating me. But modern canine behavioral research tells a different story. Very often, what looks like clinginess is not manipulation at all. It is communication. Because in your Chihuahua's world, size changes everything. Your house feels normal to you. To them, it can feel enormous. Your footsteps sound louder. Doors feel heavier. Strangers look gigantic. Cold feels colder. Fear feels closer. And in that giant world, you are the safest thing they know. You are warmth. You are routine. You are direction. You are safety. That is why understanding this behavior matters. Because sometimes your Chihuahua follows you simply because they love you. Deeply. Purely. Completely. But sometimes that same behavior can signal something more serious: pain, confusion, fear, cold, even illness. And the heartbreaking part is this. Most owners never realize the message was there, not because they do not care, but because the signal was silent. So today, we are going deeper. We will uncover 5 hidden messages behind Chihuahua clinginess, why they shake, why they stare, why they burrow, and how to tell the difference between love and a silent cry for help. If your Chihuahua follows you everywhere, comment the number 1 below. I want to see how many tiny shadows are watching with us tonight, because what you are about to learn may completely change the way you see your little companion forever. Not all clinginess means danger. Sometimes your Chihuahua simply loves being near you. That part is real. Some dogs are naturally more attached. Especially Chihuahua, they bond intensely. They choose one person, and that person becomes their entire world. But there is something every owner should watch carefully. Change. Because behavior is not just about what your dog does. It is also about what suddenly becomes different. Ask yourself this. Was your Chihuahua always like this? Or did something change recently? Maybe your dog used to nap alone, used to explore independently, used to stay calm across the room. But now, they follow you everywhere, closer than before, constantly touching you, unable to settle unless you are nearby. That kind of sudden clinginess deserves attention, because according to RSPCA, dogs often seek familiar social comfort when they feel physically vulnerable. In simple words, when something hurts, they come to the one who feels safest. Pain changes behavior. Sometimes the change is obvious. A limp, a whine, difficulty jumping. But often, pain is quiet, especially in small dogs. A Chihuahua with joint discomfort may still walk. A Chihuahua with back pain may still wag. A Chihuahua with stomach discomfort may still eat a little, but their behavior changes. They become clingier, more watchful, less willing to be alone. Because pain makes the world feel less predictable. And when the body feels uncertain, dogs seek certainty elsewhere. That certainty is often you. As Chihuahuas, another silent change can happen. The world becomes harder to read. Vision may fade. Sounds may become muffled. Shadows look unfamiliar. Voices become harder to locate. Imagine waking up one morning, and the home you know feels slightly blurrier than yesterday. Not terrifying, just wrong. A little less familiar, a little less safe. That is what sensory decline can feel like. And for a tiny dog already living in a giant world, that vulnerability multiplies. So they stay close. Not because they are needy, because proximity feels protective. You become their anchor, their reference point, their map. And in senior dogs, there is one more condition owners often miss: canine cognitive dysfunction, sometimes called dog dementia. It shares similarities with cognitive decline in humans. Dogs with this condition may pace at night, stare at walls, seem confused in familiar rooms, forget routines, appear lost inside their own home. And this is where clinginess can become heartbreaking, because your Chihuahua may no longer fully trust their own memory. Rooms feel strange, corners feel unfamiliar, even their own routine feels uncertain. So they search for the one thing that still makes sense: you, your scent, your voice, your footsteps. Your presence tells them this is home, this is safe. And perhaps the deepest truth is this: your Chihuahua may not understand what is happening inside their body. They cannot explain the pain. They cannot describe the confusion. They only know one thing: when they are near you, the fear gets smaller. So the next time your Chihuahua suddenly becomes your shadow, pause before calling them clingy. Ask a better question. Not, "Why won't you leave me alone?" but, "What are you trying to tell me?" Because sometimes attachment is affection, but sometimes it is a silent SOS. Now let's talk about the behavior almost every Chihuahua owner has seen: the shaking, the trembling, the tiny body that seems to vibrate for no obvious reason. And because this behavior is so common, many people joke about it. They're just dramatic. They're born nervous. That's just what Chihuahuas do. But what if that famous Chihuahua shake is more important than most people realize? Because in many cases, shaking is not drama, it is physiology, it is biology, it is survival. And if you watched our previous video about why Chihuahuas stare in complete silence, you may notice a pattern. This breed rarely overreacts without reason. There is usually something underneath. Let's start with the most common reason: cold. It sounds simple, but for a Chihuahua, temperature is not simple at all. Their tiny bodies lose heat much faster than larger dogs. They have less muscle, less body fat, less thermal insulation, and because their body mass is so small, heat escapes quickly. That means a temperature that feels perfectly comfortable to you may feel freezing to them. A cool floor, morning air conditioning, a draft near the door. Small things to you, big things to them. So when your Chihuahua starts trembling, their muscles may be doing exactly what your body does in winter: generating heat, trying to protect core temperature, trying to stay warm. That shake may be their body saying, "I'm cold." Not dramatic, cold. But temperature is only part of the story. There is another reason every Chihuahua owner should know: low blood sugar. Small breeds burn energy fast, very fast. Their metabolism runs like a tiny engine working overtime. That means missing meals can affect them more quickly than larger dogs. If a Chihuahua goes too long without eating, blood sugar can drop. And when that happens, symptoms may appear fast: shaking, weakness, sleepiness, confusion, loss of coordination. This condition can become serious, especially in puppies, seniors, or underweight dogs. Sometimes owners think he's just trembling again, but the body may actually be struggling for fuel. That is why context matters. Did they eat? How long ago? Are they acting normal otherwise? Always pay attention to patterns. But there is one more reason behind shaking, and this one is deeply emotional: fear. To understand this, you need to see the world through Chihuahua eyes. Imagine being barely taller than a coffee mug. Now look around. Shoes look huge. Voices sound loud. Vacuum cleaners sound monstrous. Children move fast. Strangers tower overhead. Doors slam like thunder. Suddenly, the world feels very different. To you, it may be a normal, noisy afternoon. To them, it can feel like surviving a storm. When a Chihuahua feels overwhelmed, the nervous system activates. Adrenaline rises. Muscles tense. Breathing changes, and trembling can begin, not because they are weak, because their body is preparing for survival. This is something many people misunderstand. Fear responses are not personality flaws. They are protective biology. According to modern canine behavior science, stress signals like trembling often appear before barking or aggression. In other words, shaking may be an early warning sign, a whisper before the scream. And here is the part many owners never realize. Sometimes your Chihuahua shakes while pressing against you because you are being used as a shield, a living shelter, a safe wall between them and the world. That tiny body leaning into your leg may be saying, "I don't feel safe alone. I need your help." And perhaps the most beautiful truth is this: shaking is not always a sign of weakness. Sometimes it is proof of how hard their tiny body is working to survive. So the next time your Chihuahua trembles, do not laugh too quickly. Look closer. Check the room. Check their body. Check the situation. Because behind that tiny shake, there may be a message. If your Chihuahua shakes when scared or cold, comment 1 below. You may understand that little trembling body very differently after today. Then there is the behavior that unsettles many owners the most. The stare. You look up from your phone, and your Chihuahua is there, still, silent, watching you, not blinking much, not moving, just staring, sometimes for seconds, sometimes for minutes. And if you watched our previous videos about this exact behavior, you already know that stare is rarely meaningless, because dogs do not stare at humans the way humans stare at screens. Attention is valuable. Focus costs energy. So when your Chihuahua locks onto you like that, something is happening. What? The question is, for many Chihuahuas, the answer begins with connection. Behavioral research shows something fascinating happens when dogs and humans hold soft eye contact. Oxytocin rises in both species. Oxytocin is often called the bonding hormone, the love hormone. It plays a powerful role in trust, attachment, and emotional safety. It appears between parents and children, between loved ones, and remarkably, between dogs and humans too. That means when your Chihuahua gazes at you calmly, their brain may literally be reinforcing emotional attachment. In simple words, sometimes they stare because being connected to you feels good. It calms them. It regulates them. It makes the world feel safer. But there is another layer, and this is where Chihuahuas become fascinating. They are exceptional observers. They read faces, eyes, posture, movement, breathing, tone of voice, tiny changes most humans miss. They are constantly gathering emotional information. Because in the wild, small animals survive by reading danger early. That instinct never fully disappeared. So your Chihuahua often studies your face to answer one critical question. Are we safe? That may sound dramatic, but think about how often dogs use human reactions to judge situations. A sound happens, they look at you. Someone enters the room, they look at you. Something unexpected occurs, they look at you again. Why? Because you are their social reference point. They use your reaction to decide their own. If you stay calm, they often calm down faster. If you tense up, they notice immediately. And this is why staring becomes even more important when fear is involved. Pay attention to the body. Is the stare soft? Relaxed ears, gentle eyes, loose posture. That usually signals affection or curiosity. But if the stare comes with frozen posture, stiff body, tenses muscles, minimal movement, that message changes. Now your Chihuahua may be scanning for threats, listening, assessing, waiting. They may be asking you something without making a sound. Did you hear that? Should we worry? Are we okay? And here is the part that touches many owners deeply. When your Chihuahua stares at you, they may be reading your face the way a child reads parents, searching for reassurance, searching for safety, searching for emotional direction. That means your becomes more than just familiar. It becomes information, comfort, guidance, home. So next time you catch your Chihuahua staring at you in complete silence, do not assume they are being strange. They may not be staring at all. They may be listening to your breathing, your energy, your emotional state, trying to understand one thing, whether the world around them is safe enough to relax. And sometimes the reason they keep looking at you is beautifully simple. They are not checking the room. They are checking their home. And to them, home looks exactly like you. Then there is one of the cutest behaviors Chihuahua owners know well, the disappearing act. One moment, your Chihuahua is beside you. The next, gone. You check the couch. Nothing. Look at the dog bed. Empty. Then you notice a small lump moving under the blanket, and suddenly, there they are, curled up, buried deep, warm, and perfectly content. Most owners laugh when they see this, and honestly, it is adorable. But once again, this behavior carries a deeper message. Because burrowing is not random. And if you have been watching closely through this video, you may notice the pattern. Your Chihuahua keeps doing the same thing in different ways. Seeking safety, seeking warmth, seeking regulation. Blankets help with all three. Let's start with the most obvious reason. Heat. Because Chihuahuas are so small, conserving body warmth matters constantly. A blanket creates something powerful, a microclimate, a tiny pocket of trapped warmth around the body. That warmth reduces heat loss. It helps muscles relax. It helps the nervous system settle. To a Chihuahua, that blanket can feel like a heated shelter, a tiny cave, protected, enclosed, safe. And there is another layer many people overlook. Your scent. Blankets absorb smell, your skin, your lotion, your shampoo, your home, your presence. Dogs experience the world through scent far more deeply than humans do. So when your Chihuahua disappears under your blanket, they may be surrounding themselves with something profoundly comforting. You, even when you are not touching them. Your scent says you are safe. Nothing bad is happening. Relax. And in some female Chihuahuas, sudden intense nesting can signal hormonal shifts, especially after a heat cycle. Some may experience false pregnancy behaviors, digging, nesting, protecting blankets or toys. This does not always mean something is wrong, but it is worth noticing if the behavior becomes extreme or sudden. And perhaps the sweetest truth is this. Your Chihuahua is always not hiding under the blanket to disappear from the world. Sometimes, they are creating the safest little world they can find. Warm, soft, familiar, smelling like home. So the next time you see that tiny moving blanket on your couch, smile. Because your Chihuahua may not be hiding from you. They may be wrapping themselves in everything that reminds them of you. And in their tiny heart, that may feel like the safest place in the world. Now we arrive at the most important question of all. When does attachment mean love? And when does it mean panic? Because not all clinginess is unhealthy. In fact, many Chihuahuas are naturally what people call Velcro dogs. They follow you, sleep near you, want physical contact, wait for you by the door. That alone is not a problem. For many Chihuahua, deep attachment is simply part of who they are. They love intensely, they bond deeply, and once they choose their person, they love with extraordinary loyalty. That kind of closeness can be completely healthy. But healthy attachment has one important feature. The dog can still regulate when you are gone. They may miss you, they may wait for you, but they remain functional. They can rest, they can eat, they can settle. Separation anxiety is different, very different. This is not simple clinginess. This is panic, a true distress response. And panic changes everything. A dog experiencing separation anxiety may scream or bark intensely, pace nonstop, destroy doors or furniture, drool excessively, urinate indoors, chew until their mouth bleeds. Some even injure themselves trying to escape. This is where many owners misunderstand the behavior. They say, "He's being stubborn. She's acting spoiled. He's trying to control me." But modern canine behavioral science tells us something important. This is not manipulation, and outdated dominance theories popularized before the later work of L. David Meck clarified wolf social behavior, often misled owners into interpreting fear as control. Your Chihuahua is not trying to dominate you. They are overwhelmed. Their nervous system is in survival mode. They are not choosing chaos. They are experiencing distress. And that distinction matters. Because once you understand the emotion underneath the behavior, everything changes. You stop asking, "How do I stop this behavior?" and start asking, "What pain is creating this behavior?" That question changes the relationship. It creates compassion. And perhaps that is the deepest truth behind everything we talked about today. The clinginess, the shaking, the staring, the burrowing, none of these behaviors automatically mean something is wrong. But none of them are meaningless either. They are signals, messages, whispers from a tiny nervous system trying to communicate with the giant human it trusts most. And if there is one thing I hope you remember from this video, it is this. Your Chihuahua was never trying to become your burden. They were never trying to annoy you. They were never trying to make your life harder. They were trying to survive the world. with the only anchor they fully trust, you. So the next time Chihuahua follows you into the kitchen, waits outside the bathroom, or curls against your feet in silence, pause before saying, "You're so needy." Look closer, listen deeper, because that tiny shadow behind you may simply be saying, "I feel safest when I'm near you." If your Chihuahua is your little shadow, comment 1 below. I would love to hear your story. And if your Chihuahua also stares at you in complete silence, watch the next video on your screen, because that stare may reveal something even deeper than you think. Until next time, keep listening to what love sounds like, even when it says nothing at all.